Hey guys. Oh, hey guys, and welcome to And Now for something a little bit different, episode 27. Each week I take a look at stuff I think needs some love and I try to put in a good word for you. This week I'm super excited because I have my good buddy Mike Willden here as a special guest. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a
Hey,
pleasure.
thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, of course. It's an absolute pleasure. We've been friends forever, and it's this is awesome to actually see you come on and do my thing. You're my second guest, and it's an absolute pleasure. I've been listening to you on the Watch Skip Plus stuff and having a blast. The whole Sundance
Ah,
episode was fantastic. Same thing with the Oscar. And hell, you even made that movie Imaginary sound like it might be worth watching, which I didn't think was possible. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm pushing it a little on that one. I had the A-list thing, and I still was on the fence
uh,
about it. But no, it was really cool hearing you on Watch Skip Plus. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the big Robert Rodriguez, and we're going to be talking about El Mariachi. Um, it's I love the movie, but I'll go into that more further along. I figure before we start doing a deep dive into it, for my listeners who aren't familiar with you and your background, if you could maybe just take a couple minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in film and your love of film, and we'll go from there.
yeah. Well, my name is Mike. I go by the Wildebeest on the Watch Skip Plus. I've guested on there 4 times, like you mentioned. We became friends through the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema Facebook group. I believe we became friends because of a Kringle back in 2016, 2017,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was this really cool thing they did where they allowed us to share physical media and pictures. And this shirt is actually one I got from Ken Lamplug.
Oh,
He's
that's
the
awesome.
guy, a Gentleman's Guide friend, and
Great.
he follow. We're good friends because of Kringle. I mean, because
Yeah,
of Will and Sammy and that whole world, and then Cupcake and Justin and everybody from Watch Skip Plus. I think that this whole kind of pod brother world has been really cool, and to be part of this YouTube channel is awesome. I've never been a part of someone's YouTube channel, so I appreciate you having me here. But my love of film goes. I'm kind of like known as the Sundance guy because I've gone to
yeah.
Sundance since 2003. But my love of film goes back to my childhood. My mother, rest in peace, who passed away when I was like a teenager, she
Yeah.
instilled that love of film in me really young. I remember as a kid going to the drive-in. The first movie I really remember seeing like that I probably wasn't supposed to was Police Academy. My parents took
Oh,
me to see that.
awesome.
They went to see it, and I was in the driveway, and I was probably 5 or 6. I remember that film pretty vividly. I remember seeing Raising Arizona at the local Sandcastle Theater in Bountiful, Utah. It was
Oh
circa
man, I'm jealous.
86. I remember seeing Back to the Future at that same theater the year before that. Oh, gosh, I remember seeing just all these classic movies in the 80s. My mom really pushed me. And then she also instilled my love of award shows. And we watched the Academy
Yeah.
Awards at least since I remember the 86, 87 year. Uh, so at least starting in the 80s, then I've watched it pretty much ever since. Might have missed some years, but most of the time I'm watching the Oscars because of my mom. So rest in peace, Mama. She kind of like instilled that
Absolutely.
love, and still today I love film. And then my Sundance journey started with a class at the University of Utah back in December 2002. I took this weird class that's like December
Mhm.
and January. It was kind of in between,
Oh,
but
that's awesome.
it was this weird class. So it was like 3 or 4. I would think it was 4 classes where we went in. We discussed the history of the Sundance Film Festival. We
Mhm.
talked about the films that were important, some that kind of premiered there, and others that kind of got their kickstart, and kind of went over that. And then he said, "Look, you have to go to see films during the festival. There's a student pass. I want you to see at least 5 to 10.
Mhm.
If you see 20, and I don't care what you write, I will give you an A." So I was like, challenge accepted. So I went and
Yeah.
saw like 20 films my first year and saw like Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, which blew my freaking mind. Never seen anything like that. I
That's an
felt so
intense
like
fucking movie.
assaulted.
Oh my
Oh yeah,
God.
and I was young still. I was still like, hazed in this world of religion,
What's
and
up
I
with
was just
Monica
like,
Bellucci? You see, have you
oh,
ever seen Monica Bellucci? And what's that movie? By Giuseppe Tornatore. It's one of my favorites. Molina. Ever see Molina?
Oh, it's been a long time, but 'cause she's
Well,
gorgeous
really,
in everything.
but it's the same way, like in the sense that like the girl just fucking it starts off as this beautiful melodrama, this wonderfully told story, and then by the end she's just like brutalized. And when I think of that, and I just think of what you're talking about, Irreversible. Oh my God, the
Yeah,
shit
it's
that girl
true.
goes through. You know what I mean in
Yeah,
that movie. But what's interesting is the way that movie was shot as well. It was so shot
yeah.
so well and so compelling. It was brutal, but you felt it, man. You were like, oof,
You feel that.
yeah,
You
no,
feel
that's
all of that. So that Sundance, like that was one of those
yeah.
films that really pulled me. But going back to where we're going, one of the
Yeah.
films that was mentioned in the actual class itself is El Mariachi, and he was
Yeah.
mentioned. Robert Rodriguez was mentioned among some of the big names that kind of revitalized Sundance in the '90s when their name change happened in the late '80s.
Mhm.
So the Sundance Kids, as they were known as, you had Robert Rodriguez, and even before him, the old school back in the '80s, you had people like Jim Jarmusch, you had Steven Soderbergh, and then in comes this new group of Tarantino, Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, guys that are like, let's just grab a fucking camera. Oh, sorry, let's grab a camera and let's go for it. And they're
Yeah.
just recording and kind of just guerrilla filmmaking at its heart, based
Yeah.
off of a lot of homages to films they've seen, either because they worked at video stores like
Yeah.
Tarantino and Kevin
Yeah.
Smith, or they just lived and breathed it, and that energy, that kind of hustle that Robert Rodriguez, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So I feel this is a perfect, I appreciate you bringing me on here. I think when we talk about the film, I think we'll have some different opinions, but I appreciate you bringing me on here because Robert
Oh,
Rodriguez
yeah.
is that spirit of independent, which I love about film, and that Sundance world that I've been a part of for 22 years now. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk more about the movie, but that's me
No,
in a nutshell.
that's awesome. Well, it was great hearing it, and trust me, I welcome. Number one, it's a pleasure to have you, dude. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited that you're here. Number one, and then number two, I welcome the difference in opinions because like it's so awesome to have a different take on things. It's so awesome to have that different perspective. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm gaining so much by hearing that. So that's part of what makes this so exciting, at least for me. I think it's just really fun. And now, as I joked with you beforehand, I'm going to occasionally cheat and look at my cheat sheet. It's just out of frame
Yeah.
here, guys. But I make that joke
It
with my
is what it
listeners all the
is. We
time.
have to.
So occasionally I'm going to be glancing down, and sometimes it's more obvious than others. So I guess the next question I'll ask for you is, who are some of your favorite directors? Who are some of your favorite actors? Do you have a favorite genre, like um, stuff like that? You know,
Well, I've got a list of
stuff that
things
you.
here that I put together for podcasts. So for my favorite directors, and this is one that I've thrown together, I
Yeah,
don't know, a couple weeks ago. Just off the top, this is really going to tell you who I am. Sam
yeah,
Raimi, Adam Wingard, Paul Thomas Anderson, Danny
yeah.
Boyle, Park Chan Wook, Alexander Aha, Coen Brothers, Tim
Mm,
Burton. I love my Wes Anderson. I love my Wes Craven. The two Wes's, they're polars, but I love them. Todd Haynes, Cameron Crowe. I love Alexander Payne, the Duplass brothers, the Daniels, Tarantino. That's like my list. Those are the
yeah,
people who I really. You're not going to see
that you respond
Scorsese.
to. Yeah,
Those are the ones I respond to. You're not going to see a lot
yeah,
of film from the '70s. Like you're
yeah,
not. I love it. I respect it. I'm an '80s child, and I've really spent
yeah.
my time in the '80s and '90s, and then since really dove into independent film and what I've been introduced through festivals and just diving into the independent world. So you're going to see me mentioning a lot of newer films, maybe from 2000s
Yeah,
on, and maybe some stuff from the '80s and '90s. But a lot of my favorite stuff came when I was in college, and kind of following that stuff since and seeing what these guys have done. And some of these guys, like the Daniels, following what they've done both together and then separate with the death of Dick Long at Sundance, just
well,
all this fun stuff that they've done. So these are some of the names I like. As far
yeah.
as actors go, my number one, as you can see from my shirt, Nick
Oh, Nick
Cage, always
Cage.
and
All
forever.
right. Yeah.
Always, I'll never forget Raising Arizona is a theatrical experience. Like a 7-year old, I felt like I was
Yeah.
watching a live action cartoon, and he was so
Oh, yeah.
funny to me. And he became one of those actors. And then I think I saw Peggy Sue got married right afterwards,
Mm.
which is like my way. He has like the greatest accent in that movie. I love him in that
That's
movie so
awesome.
much. And then of course Bill Murray, Steve Martin, Robin Williams. Newer guys I love, like Ryan Gosling. I love Paul Dano. I love Kate Blanchett, Amy Adams. Like these
Mm,
are some of the actors I really respond to and love.
mm.
Yeah, I love independent film. I love horror film. I love genre stuff. Love pretty much everything. Yeah, I dabble in a little bit of everything.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and you know, it's funny. Like we're on a similar vibe. Like I'm like yourself. I respect a lot of the '70s stuff. I do think some of it's really fantastic and good. But along the same
Mhm,
through line as you, in the '80s, I grew up going to the video store, you know, taping stuff off HBO. So a lot of the genre stuff in particular, I fell in love with that. That's how like my journey into film began. And then when the '90s came, like I wanted to be a comic book writer, then I wanted to become a filmmaker. And I was just blown away by like these stories of Kevin Smith. You know, it's almost like a fairy tale, maxing out $30,000 in credit cards and somehow having this miraculous journey to distribution and then having a career. Same thing with Robert Rodriguez, you know, that we're going to talk about
mhm.
as we go further along. These stories connected with me. The stories are great, but the journey of how they made it happen was also part of the magic. And it told me, a young kid from New Jersey who was like 18 or 19, that like, hey, this is achievable. You know, this is something that possibly could be do that you could do. Like, whereas before, like earlier on watching movies, I'm like, that's something that only happened in Hollywood. That's something that you need a studio and $20 million and 4 or 5 A-list actors to make it happen. I saw that and I was like, wow, you can actually do this. This is something that's attainable. And then now you flash forward today, we're both in our 40s, and you have these kids that are fucking shooting, pardon my French, shooting shit on a
Yeah,
fucking iPhone.
they
And you know,
are.
they still have to have a great screenplay. They still have to get actors that are rehearsed and that are well, everything's still got to come together. And it's some ways it's harder because there's you're opening up the doors to make it more accessible. So I guess that's the yin to the yang. But you can also do it. You know what I mean? You can say, hey,
Yeah.
I have a dream, and it's not just a Martin Luther King speech. I have a dream, and I can take that dream and I can go up the steps to try to achieve it. You know. So for me, like that was part of the connection to where I fell in love with the '90s. Um, and independent film and foreign films. I had a good friend who passed away sadly in 2010, best friend in the world. He used to go to the library, and they had more foreign films than your Blockbuster would ever even imagine to have, or
Oh
any
yeah.
video store. And I used to make fun of him. I was like, dude, why are you fucking sitting there reading your film? Because I was an ignorant 18, 19-year-old kid. I'm like, why are you reading a film? If you want to read something, go fucking read a book, you idiot. But I was ignorant. I was ignorant. He put me in my place, deservedly so. And he rented literally every fucking foreign film in that entire library. And then eventually he got me to see the light. And I realized, like, same thing with the independent films. There's so much of a world out there waiting to be explored. There's this big, broad world. And by entering that world of independent films and foreign films, you're just seeing so much culture, so many different viewpoints, things that you probably just won't see as much, or I didn't see as much at that point in my life in the world of Hollywood films. You know, it doesn't mean it
Yeah.
wasn't out there to some level, but it just wasn't out there in that way. So it really blew my mind. And like yourself, that's when all these different independent films and foreign films really got pushed heavily in the '90s. And that's what kind of got
Hmm.
me hooked into that world. So to answer your question, or to respond to your story in my own much longer way, of course. Yeah, no, totally. I'm on the same page. And like you said, I still connect with the stuff that was in the '70s, and I still respect it. And I still see a lot of good stuff that was there. But the stuff that where my heartbeat is, my heartbeat is definitely in that '90s era, because that's where it just connected. You know, everything came together.
Yeah,
So,
that's where it started with me. And I mean, my mom took me to see La Femme Nikita in the theaters. When was that?
oh
90,
man,
91. I
see
mean,
that shit wouldn't even
I
be
was
playing down
open to
here.
that. Yeah, I was in North Carolina at the time, and it was playing actually at like the mall theater and like outside of Charlotte where we lived at the time.
Mhm.
So that was wild. But she used to take us to movies, and then of course, you know, we were during that video era
Yeah,
where they would get weird stuff, weird foreign films, and you would, if you had a good
yeah,
story, you'd get some weird stuff. So
yeah,
I dove into everything, but it wasn't really until Sundance when I got really deep into foreign film. Like Old Boy was like a big
yeah.
introduction. That was like my third or fourth
Oh,
Sundance.
that movie blew me away.
Um, yeah, that blew me away. And I think I told you Save the Green Planet was another film that I
Yeah,
saw really young because of Netflix. It was just a random one. I've got into Netflix 3 DVDs way back in like, I don't know, 2002 or three when that first started. So I was there. I mean, as all of us film buffs did, we always had something, some way to watch film, whether we were getting
Yeah.
bootlegs or downloads or whatever. I mean, at the time when you could get three random movies sent to you that you just go and you could find anything. I remember being like, wow, I couldn't find this at my local. I couldn't find this at Blockbuster. I couldn't find
Yeah.
this at Top Hat. I couldn't find this anywhere. But boom, I can find this on Netflix to get sent to me and it'll be here in 3 days. That was crazy. And now everything's at our fingertips. So
Oh yeah, if you
it's
can't
crazy
find
to
it on
think of
Amazon,
it.
you're gonna find it on eBay. You're gonna find it on another million sites. There's always gonna be that one site that'll have that region 4 Blu-ray that isn't available or it's out of print, but you'll find it somewhere. You might pay through the nose, but you'll find it. So
Yeah,
it's
you'll find it.
definitely a
There's
different
ways.
world. I remember seeing like stuff like later on in the month. I'm going to be talking about. I mentioned to you the Crying Freeman movie in
Yeah.
April with Mark Dacascos by Christopher Dance, and hopefully good old Troy from Not a Bomb is going to still make an appearance in that as well. And I remember going up to New York. My friend was in the military, my best friend. He was in Brooklyn, and going to like Fulton Street in Brooklyn and getting like a VHS copy because that was the only way you could get it. I couldn't get it at a mom and pop video store. I couldn't get it at Blockbuster. It was a
Yeah.
good old bootleg. And it's not like nowadays you just go online, you go to, not that we're not supposed to say this, but the torrent sites like Pirate Bay or
Pirates.
or any
Yeah.
other things. You know.
We've all been there once in a while, but usually for me, it's if something's out of print or you can't
Yeah,
find it.
yeah.
You
Otherwise,
know,
I'm supporting it in whatever way I can legitimately.
exactly.
So
I'll
yeah.
support, but if it's out of print, arg, matey, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. If it's out
I
of
want to
print, what am
watch
I
it
gonna
and it's
do?
out there. Yeah,
So
but I mean, nowadays you can find films for free. Even the United States government has like a bunch of stuff for free on their, like all the things that they've included on their Congress. You can watch all that stuff for free. So I mean, there's no excuse for not being able to become a film buff. And I think this channel and other podcasts that I've been a part of, I think what we need to do is look at the youth and try to get other people that are younger than us to continue to be cinephiles, because I think going to the film, going to the cinema and sitting and watching a movie all in one, with a group of people is just dying. It's a dying art. It's not
yeah,
what people do. They watch movies in chunks.
yeah,
I talk to my kids. Oh, what did you watch? Oh, my teenager's like, I watched Napoleon. It took me 6 days. It's like, that's not how it's meant to be watched. It's like, I don't
no,
know. It's just a
no,
different
no,
generation.
yeah,
So I try
no. I
to
mean,
push, like, sit, watch a movie. Let's go to the theater. Let's have a family night and all sit,
yeah, and
phones
have an
down.
experience.
Yeah, let's all have a part of this experience of going to the film or going to the theater or just focusing on the movie. It's
Yeah,
dying, like people paying attention to film. So we got to push this on our kids. We got to push it on everybody.
I think
So I guess, yeah, that's how I feel. Go ahead.
no, no, of course. I think part of like what you're saying is in the sense of like even myself as a 49-year-old, focusing is so much harder because, and I think part of it because I don't have AD&D, ADD. I can usually put together a cohesive sentence, although now I'm struggling. But
Ah,
I think with the generational thing, even as myself, we have these fucking electronic devices. Pardon my French again. I curse a lot. It's a
no,
Jersey thing.
yeah, no. We're not
I
we're
have
not
so
making
many
money on
electronic
this.
devices in front of my face at all times that like it's hard to just put it down, shut up, and just focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's a book, whether it's especially in the movie theaters. I don't know how many times I'm sitting in a movie theater and at some point somebody's picking up that phone, even if it's just to check a text message. Listen, I'm sure your life is important. I'm sure you've got things going on in your life. We all do. But unless it's an emergency, put that fucking thing down and eat your popcorn and enjoy the story being
Mhm.
untold on the big screen. You just paid 12 to 15 bucks. Have a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Luckily, I
So
go to a theater that has recliners, so I really
yeah.
have no vision and like little walls. So I
Uh,
really can't see anybody behind me or below me,
oh,
like
okay.
maybe to the side of me. But that's the nice thing of the newer theaters and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the reserved seating and the recliners. I see less and less of that just because of where I go with my little Regal
yeah,
pass, my Regal
yeah.
Unlimited that I love. So speaking of, what have you been watching or consuming
Oh
this
yeah,
week?
that's actually what I was gonna. That was next on the. So what I've been watching, I've been doing
Good
a lot of
minds are
rewatching.
alike.
I know
Let's hear it.
you gotta straighten me out because I'll veer off the path here, Mike. Like I told you. But
I was just thinking, let's
yeah,
talk. We're talking it. We're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about the theaters. Let's see what we've
Yeah,
seen.
so I've been doing a lot of rewatches. I've just I put out my last episode of the show last week, and just a little backstory. It's been a month since I recorded anything, and I had a lot of issues with the last episode. Just technical issues, just being rusty. So part of that was the whole month. It was just nuts. I had just had time to really do anything other than work like a dog and just dealing with other things in life. Um, so this week, unfortunately, it was a little bit of the same. Just so much going on. I didn't really have a chance to do a lot of new watches. I did a lot of rewatches. So I caught like a big one for me was I caught this documentary about MASH. I'm just pulling up that page, so just bear with me. I'm going to come up with the name of it. It's called MASH, When Television Changed Forever, and it's about that show MASH from the 70s and 80s. I love
Hmm.
that show. I think as a kid, I didn't quite get it as much, but as I got older, I started watching the repeats and stuff.
Yeah.
And that show, if you've ever watched it, it has drama, it has comedy, it has melodrama, and I started watching it again on Hulu. It's such a well done show. The acting is top notch. The storylines are good. Even if by today's standards, where people have bigger budgets, they're not giving you all these different elements. And these guys
Yeah.
didn't have HBO budgets where they could throw $3 million on an episode or $1 million. So this doc is just a really deep dive into that television show. A lot of really good interviews. It's a Tubi watch. So that was the only one that was like completely new. The other stuff is
That
rewatch.
theme song, though, let's talk about that MASH theme song. Is it not in your head all the time?
Oh, of course, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
As
So
soon as you said MASH, I heard da, 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 da.
and Alan Alda, man, come on, he's awesome. Hawkeye, come on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's so classic. Like that
No,
is the most
no.
classic. And it used to come on when I was a kid. It would come on after the news, and my parents would fall asleep. My grandparents would
Yeah,
fall asleep with it on, and so
yeah.
you would hear that, and I always knew that they were asleep. And yeah, just good memories. Good show, though. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, 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 of course, no, at all. No, don't ever apologize. So I watched that. A one that I think is a stone cold classic that is underrated is a animated movie, an anime actually. It's called A Wind Named Amnesia. Came out in 1990, and the premise is a mysterious gust of wind erases all human knowledge, and a young man and an enigmatic woman, mysterious woman, we'll just say, travel across the USA looking for answers. So it's this really good hardcore sci-fi um, about this gust of wind that hits the entire planet, and for some reason, this kid is able to retain his memories, and he's able to retain being a civilized human being while the rest of the planet is reverted back to being like almost like savages. They're back to like caveman times. They can't do anything intelligent, but him and this girl that he meets are able to still be like regular people like us, and they're basically traveling the planet trying to figure it out. Really, really good sci-fi if you dig the sci-fi world. The animation is gorgeous. The only downside is they don't have a subtitle for it, so we had to deal with an English dub. And this was back in the days when the English dubs weren't exactly great. They didn't have access to Billy Bob Thornton for like Princess Mononoke or
Mhm.
like A-list actors. They were using, you know, actors that were, they could get the job done, but maybe they were a little bit wooden. So that's the only downside. If this movie ever gets released with subtitles, I think the movie will be like probably like a top 4 or 5 star movie for me. Like I would absolutely say it's despite the issue with the dubbing, I'd say it's still a really good movie. It's on
Yeah.
Tubi. So is the MASH one. On the Criterion Channel, and I was surprised by this. I did another rewatch of Cocktail. Tom Cruise, Elizabeth Shue. Now that's a movie that got a fucking Raspberry Award, but for some reason that movie's always held a special place in my heart. You got, like I said, you got Tom Cruise, Elizabeth Shue. We got Brian Brown playing Doug Coughlin. You got Roger Donaldson directing. Um, and Roger Donaldson, I didn't realize how many good movies he directed that I like Cadillac Man, which I love, No Way Out, The Getaway, 13 Days.
Yeah.
He's directed all these movies that I didn't even realize. Um, and that's just a fun movie about we've probably most of our audience has probably already seen Cocktail, but it's about a guy that's trying to become a successful businessman, and he ends up in the world of bartending, and he meets this Australian guy who's a bit of a character, and they become friends. And he meets Elizabeth Shue, this rich uppity girl, and they kind of fall in love, and a bunch of shit happens. And it's a little bit of a, it's a kind of like finding your way in the world kind of movie with a lot of different elements. And it was just a really fun rewatch. So I did that one, and then I watched UHF by Weird Al, because it's fucking Weird Al. Who doesn't love Weird Al? And that's, I'm sure that's another one most of our listeners probably already know. A guy whose uncle bequeaths him a local television studio, a local television studio. He enters the television studio and basically takes over and produces all these weird shows and tries to keep it from going bankrupt, essentially. And that's just a really off the walls, kind of crazy, but stupid, fun movie. So that was kind of what I was watching for the week. Like I said, it's mostly rewatches, with the exception of that MASH documentary. But they're all fun things, and they're all worth visiting. So I definitely would recommend all of them to my listeners. But enough about me. It's time to put the spotlight back on you, Mike. What have you been watching?
Well, there's a couple television shows. First and foremost is the gloriously trashy docuseries on Max called Curious Case of Natalia Grace.
Ooh,
It is this two-part, like 2 seasons so far of 6 episodes each. It's done for ID or Discovery Network. It's done in kind of a trashy TV style, but it's really interesting if you're not familiar with this case of Michael Barnett and his wife. They adopt this girl from the Ukraine. Well, all of a sudden they start telling stories of this girl who they thought was 6, who now they say she's not 6. She's got a knife. She's threatening to kill them. And basically that they've adopted the real life version of the orphan, someone who's an adult, not a child. And this person also is a little person, so their size is really small and probably isn't going to grow big. So they're trying to convince the world that they've actually adopted somebody who is an adult. The show takes you on the documentary takes you on a twist and turn. And Michael Barnett is one of the most despicable human beings you'll ever see on anything. I hate him. I despise him. He's just disgusting. But you can't stop looking at him. It's like Tiger King. It's Tiger King TV, basically. So if you want to just binge something at night with your significant other, it's 12 episodes. We busted through that thing in like 3 days. We also, after that, we started Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime. That's Donald Glover. Yeah, it is really good. It is really good. If you're familiar with Donald Glover, he's done TV work like Swarm and his classic now, Atlanta. I know him from his rap stuff and his stand-up work. I've actually seen him both live as a stand-up comedian and as a rapper. So I'm a big fan of him. So I don't know why I waited so long to get to this, but we started watching it. We're about 3 or 4 episodes in. It's hilarious. It's funny. Each episode is these two characters who kind of get put together as a Mr. and Mrs. Smith instead of in the movie that they're kind of playing with. They kind of find out that each other are both Mr. and Mrs. Smith without really knowing that they're spies. In this, they know they're spies. They're working together as a couple, and it's kind of like a program sort of thing. And you're watching them go through each, mission, basically. So it's 8 episodes, and we're 3 or 4 episodes in. It's great stuff if you're a fan of him and Atlanta or any of that. That's on Amazon Prime. And I hate how Amazon Prime now makes you watch commercials at the beginning of everything. They used to not.
They already charge you almost 100. It's almost like, what is it? Almost like $150 a year.
Yeah, I remember when it was like $7 a month. Yeah, now it's whatever. I'm pissed about all this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm too cheap to fucking pay the money for the commercial free. So so I just fucking sit there and curse the whole time while I'm watching the commercials.
Yeah, right. And now going back to going to the theaters. I went to the theaters twice this week. Because of my pass. I took the kids to see Kung Fu Panda 4. The Jack Black Classics continues on, this time without the other 5, Furious 5 or whatever they were called. So, but this time it's just him on kind of a road trip movie with a fox voiced by what seems to be on every animated show, Aquafina. She seems to be the go-to voice for pretty much anything animated or sub-animated. Even in The Little Mermaid, she played the little bird. Like, her voice is so, and like my kid's like, oh, it's her voice again. Like, she's in everything. It's so
I didn't know who
Yeah,
she was until I fucking saw her in Renfield. And then my girlfriend's like, "Oh, that's that Aquafina girl." I was like, "Who the fuck's Aquafina?" It's just you had a.
her
I'm
voice.
sorry.
Oh my
I'm
gosh, but
sorry. I didn't
she's
mean to cut
all
you
over.
off. I
No,
apologize.
no, don't cut. We're just conversing. It's no big deal. But yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't love her, but the
Yeah.
movie itself was cute enough. It was
Yeah.
fine. I think it's the weakest of the four, but my kids had
Yeah.
a blast and they kind
Mhm.
of went on their own and binge watched with the other kids the other three movies. So they love that series now. So that
Mhm.
was fun for them. The highlight for me this week in the theaters was Love Lies Bleeding. If you know me or you've listened to Watch Skip Plus, the podcast I guested on, I've done 2 Sundance episodes, but this last year, Love Lies Bleeding was at the festival, but I didn't see it at Sundance
Yeah.
because I knew it was coming out. I had to make a decision. I saw another crazy movie called Crazy House that was also in the
Mhm.
midnight section. I don't know why they made them compete to get viewers, but I went and saw that instead, and I knew that Love Lies Bleeding was going to be good because everybody who saw it was just raving. So finally, once I had my time, oh my gosh, it's this beautiful, nasty, fun,
Yeah.
like neo noir set in
Mhm.
1989 about a bodybuilder and a lesbian gym owner who become lovers and get hooked on steroids. And it's just this dirty, slimy, grimy film that I just had a
Yeah.
blast with. It's total neo noir fun. So I can't, I just cannot scream enough. If you're a GGTMC fan of the Gentleman Guide to Midnight Cinema world, this is your
Yeah.
movie. It is so dirty and sweaty and sexy and steamy and shockingly violent at times. I love this movie. I think it's great. If I would have saw it at the festival, it would have been like in my top three. It would have been like
Oh
top
wow.
number
Well, that
three as
you
far
can't
as
get me higher praise than that. That's for sure. I'm actually
I
excited.
loved it.
I'm excited because I saw the trailer and I was like, this looks really cool. Then I saw you talk about it on your Facebook social, and we had like I know you mentioned it briefly to me in our conversations before we did this. Um, and I got even more excited, and I'm even surprised because I shouldn't be. It's got Kirsten Stewart in it, or Kristen Stewart, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
But I was surprised because my local theater actually has it. It's playing in a multiplex, and I hate to say it, I don't live out in the sticks, but where I'm at, you have like two multiplexes, and then if you want to go to like an art theater, which with this film would typically be labeled as like in that kind of genre of an art film, you have to go like an hour away practically to see it. So to see that it got a wide release is awesome. Hopefully more of these type movies get wide releases, so that way it just becomes part of the culture. So when instead of going to your multiplex and seeing these three options playing in 10 screens, you also have this option and that option and that option, because the whole
I
thing
think
about
you're going to see that more, John, because
yeah,
of the strike.
yeah,
Because of that strike, there's a lot. We had 6 months where
yeah,
movies weren't made, but independents were allowed. A24 and
yeah,
Neon. This is an A24
yeah,
film that did have some work done during that strike period. So
yeah,
A24 and Neon got that exception too. You're going to see them, both A24 and Neon, put more of their independent films into the big, like 3,000 screen releases. So I think you're going to
yeah,
see more just because there's not a lot of big budget. So they're going to
yeah,
start putting out a lot of this quality 5 to 10 million budget indie stuff that can really cross over. So don't be
which is
shocked that you see more
yeah.
stuff like this.
I'm
I
excited for it, dude. Years
Me
ago,
too.
I was in my early 20s. I was working in a movie theater. I worked there for 4 years, and I used to always bust my manager's chops. I'm like, you got all these other films out there that are awesome. Some of them even have names to them. You guys don't even bother to put a fucking. This is before the internet, and you could watch a trailer on YouTube on your own. You don't even
Yeah.
put a trailer out for it. If you put a trailer out, maybe you'll get some interest. Then you take a chance on putting the movie. You got 10 screens. Why the hell not? And but obviously, I realized the 90s was a different landscape, even early
Yeah.
2000s. That's where I'm at. But instead, they'd crank out the same three fucking mainstream movies and spread them among 10 screens. And there's nothing horribly wrong with that. It's just that why not give me some variety? You know, you go to the restaurant. I don't want to just order a slice of pizza sometimes. Sometimes I want a cheeseburger. Sometimes I want lasagna. You know what I mean? Like you want to just having a bigger menu. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm excited
Well,
that
thankfully we
they're doing
have
that.
A24. Well, thankfully we
Yeah,
have A24.
yeah,
They're the
yeah,
ones that are picking up these indies and putting them. Well, we
yeah,
had
sure.
Talk to Me last year. We had Bodies got a wide release. A lot of stuff that would probably have any other distributor would have thrown right on streaming. They're
Yeah,
putting the money and the energy in. Bo is Afraid, another one that they put
yeah,
out into theaters.
yeah. And that
So
was
I
actually
love that
playing.
they
Yeah. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
I love they have the guts to put the money because it's not cheap. for a
No,
distributor
no.
to put the money into putting something like that into a wide release. Now, Bo is afraid didn't really pay off. I'm sure they lost some money there, but I think they're going to make some money on this film, and they made some money on Bodies. So I think they're
Yeah.
finding those little movies. I think The Blackening was them as well. So finding these movies that
Yeah.
they can pick up and get, $3 to $5 million that can make 20 million. They can make money that way. So, and
Yeah.
again, we're going to see more stuff like this in the theaters, kind of similar to like back in 2021 when theaters were still kind of trickling open. There was a bunch of B movies, like that one with Russell Crowe who got
Yeah.
roid,
Oh my
roid
God.
rage.
The prequel.
There
Yeah.
was the weird like B
Yeah.
movies were playing in wide theatrical releases, and I'm kind of excited that this year's going to be that. We have one Marvel movie. We've got
Yeah.
tons of indie films that are going to be fitting that slot. The other big one that's came out that I saw at Sundance is the Magical World of gosh, I don't want to say it wrong because it's offensive title
Go ahead.
if
I
I
think
say it
you
wrong.
know. Oh, I know what you're talking
But
about. Yes.
you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
I'm talking about the world of magical Negroes. I saw that
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
Sundance. That title's wrong, but that's getting a pretty wide release as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No.
it's getting a pretty big release as well. So again, we're seeing these movies that are smaller, that came from Sundance and the whole festival world, that are getting bigger releases. I think another one from Sundance that's going to get a big release is called I Saw the TV Glow. That's an A24 with Justice Smith
Okay.
as well. That's going to probably really be huge for the LGBTQ world. It wasn't really for me. It's kind of
Yeah.
David Lynch Jr. Like you want
Okay.
to let your LGBTQ kids or friends, younger friends,
Yeah.
experience David Lynch light for
Yeah.
them. That's what the movie is.
Well, there you
It's
go.
like
That's awesome.
Eraserhead, but for trans kids. So
Well, it's awesome because those kids need that. Like I don't know about your upbringing, but I remember me as a teenager, like, like I said, I didn't come from the sticks, but like if you were LBGT, I hate to say it, you weren't going to get like stoned or anything like that. But like there
yeah,
was that people saying derogatory terms, people using slang words, people just not being nice just because of something like that. So the more you have stuff like that being represented bigger on a bigger, wider scale, the more we put positive into the world instead of negative, and we break down all these crappy stereotypical viewpoints of things, like these just horrible ways of looking at people just because they're LBGT or just because they have this perspective or that perspective. So it's
true.
awesome to kind of get that message out there into the world. Just force it down
Yeah.
people so they get like, hey, open your eyes, idiot. You don't have to be like this, So
Yeah.
that's great. I
And
mean,
Love Lies Bleeding is like hardcore lesbian sex
yeah,
scenes. It's as lesbian as it can get. Like,
yeah,
but it's no different than something that would have been released direct to video around that time, circa 89, 90, that
yeah,
kind of grimy neo noir. But
yeah.
there's two other films that I did see that I want to get to before we get to our main,
No,
because
no, of
these link
course.
right to what we watched. So after you told me what you wanted us to go and watch, which was El Mariachi, I decided to, on my own, rewatch the other two films in
Nice.
the Mexico trilogy by Robert Rodriguez. And I
Uh,
watched Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
oh, maybe.
Um, so Desperado, actually, I really love Desperado, man. It holds up. It's even better than it was last time I watched it. The movie is basically El Mariachi, but with Tarantino being like, "Hey, man, why don't we come in here and do this stuff and let's make it a little bit like." So it's basically El Mariachi with a Tarantino twist. So it's very Tarantino inspiration, which he was just stealing from everyone and their dog, from Sergio. I can't even say the name right, but everyone in Italian cowboy cinema. So it's really just ripping off a lot of that stuff. But we get the sexiest intro to Selma Hayek in that movie.
Yeah.
There's some of the coolest over the top wire work, like during some of those shootouts. Just awesome stuff. Like the effects, like you could see that they went from 7,000 to $7 million in this. I love how they bring in these like talky, annoying white guys just to get them killed off in really awesome, gory
Oh my
ways.
God, Steve
I thought
Buscemi,
that's awesome.
Tarantino's
Yes,
appearance. Oh
Buscemi
my God.
and Tarantino, they get killed off in great ways. Uh, there's the nice actual El Mariachi cameo in the
Yeah,
end, which that's when it goes over the top. The ending is where it almost kills itself and just says, "Hey, we're a
yeah,
live action cartoon," as the
yeah,
cases become actual guns. It's a live action cartoony version of El Mariachi, and it's
Yeah.
entertaining as fuck. And I watch
Oh,
it
I love it. Yeah,
probably
no, I love
more
that.
than any of the other in the trilogy. So
Yeah.
it's my personal favorite in the trilogy because it's the first one I saw before I saw El Mariachi,
Same thing.
and I saw, yeah, it's just I love it. I love it to death. I then went and saw Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which I
Mm,
championed big time when it first came out because pretty much
mm,
everybody who was a fan of the series hated it. And I was like,
yeah.
no, it's not as bad as you guys all
Yeah.
think. It's really not that bad. I watched it again and it didn't age well.
Yeah.
It's really a shoddy Sergio Leone tribute. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a mess. He's trying too much. It's like he's
Yeah.
trying to be Sergio Leone, trying to be Michael Mann, trying to do way too many things with this movie. You got too much time with Depp talking to people on his phone and playing with this other kid. There's just way too much there, but it
Yeah.
looks good. The action sequences are probably some of the best that Rodriguez have ever filmed, the best and
Yeah.
biggest, like practical effects wise. It's so cool to look at. And some of these older actors like Defoe and Rourke are having a good time. I mean, it
Mm.
would never happen today where Defoe plays a Mexican like that.
Yeah.
But it's big, it's bright, it's glossy. There's Banderas's hair. I don't know if it's a wig. It's really bad and weird, but he's really only in the movie like maybe 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's kind of this weird, again, trying to be like Once Upon a Time in the West, trying to be a little piece of everything, political
Yeah.
satire, CIA versus federales. And none of
Mm.
that really worked, but the blow up stuff is fun.
Yeah.
Again, I think it does earn its spot as the
Yeah.
least successful of the three, but god damn fuck if it's not fun to watch. It's so stupid, it's dumb, it's
Yeah.
comical. And it really is the introduction of what we kind of get with the future Machete character.
Mm.
We see a lot of what comes of that. So I don't know. It is fun.
Yeah.
It is kind of leads into what Rodriguez does now. I mean, Robert Rodriguez makes big silly
Yeah.
fucking live action cartoons. That's what he
Yeah,
makes.
essentially. Yeah, no, essentially. And they're either hit or miss, you know. I mean, for me, I'm right there with you. So like I don't want to give too much away of how I feel, but I'll hint at it and you guys can put together your own conclusions. Uh I think I've only seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico once. And it was in the theaters. And I remember my experience with that one was after seeing Desperado and being like, wow. And then just seeing that and there were elements of it that were awesome. And I think, like you said, it is a fun movie. It was just so all over the place. It just threw me off having seen Desperado because Desperado has its crazy moments too, but it just seemed more, I guess, cohesive. But either way, I mean, all three of the movies, in my opinion, are entertaining. At the end of the day, when you're trying to sell a popcorn film, I think all three of those
Mhm.
films accomplish that. I do think to your point, the second one accomplished it best. I mean, that was my first introduction to Antonio Banderas. I had never seen him before. I know he had been in Philadelphia, but I hadn't seen Philadelphia. And I know he had started his career with a bunch of stuff in Spain with Almodovar. He was kind of
Yep.
Almodovar's go-to guy. Him and I think Penelope Cruz. Once Almodovar stepped out of the underground stuff in the '80s, he was doing, and he kind of stepped into more of like the mainstream, I guess, Spanish version of Hollywood. It was him and Penelope Cruz were like, and even I think at one part, Javier Bardem, I think, was even in a
Mhm.
couple of his films. Those people kind of like really, I think, took their roots and kind of jumped to the next stratosphere because of the movies working with, Almodovar. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I think Desperado. I think like yourself, I think is the strongest. I do have a lot of strong feelings for El Marachi, but well, like I said, I'm not going to give that away this early
Well, we
on.
might as well get into it when you're ready.
Yeah, so I figured while I'm rambling here and trying to put together a cohesive sentence, Mike, I figured next while I'm doing that, we can start talking about, if you want to, we can start talking about the cast and crew. We can just get
Yeah.
into that. I have my little notes. So from what I have, it made the world debut in Sundance in 1992. Um, Obviously, we have Robert Rodriguez as the director. He was also the writer. He produced it alongside his wife. Excuse me, I can make words today. Elizabeth Avalon. Carlos Gallardo, our main star of El Marachi, also as a producer. and then someone named Carmen D. Gallardo. Um, what's interesting about this is a lot of the people involved were people that he knew. I thought that's interesting, you know. Even as we go into the actors, I don't have the there's like 43 actors, so I didn't bother to jot down every actor. I'm just going to focus on the main actors when we talk about that. But even the main actors were people that didn't have really a background in that. Really, I think Carlos had done one other film, and most of the other people were just regular people. You know what I mean? And you know, either you feel it worked or it didn't work. But I'll get more into that in a minute. Um, Robert Rodriguez handled the cinema photography. Um, Carlos Colorado handled production management. Um, and then we have in the music department, we have a guy named Eric Guthrie who did one of the songs, a guy named Chris Knutson, Cecilia Rodriguez, Alvario Rodriguez, and Mark Trujillo. Um, and what's interesting about the sound, not just in regards to the actual dialogue in the film, but when it came to soundtrack and score, I don't know if you knew this, they recorded everything silent when they were shooting the film.
Mhm.
And then they had like just an old fashioned tape recorder and a microphone, and they went back and recorded the dialogue. But even, and I say that now because I'm talking about the music, the same thing with the music. He actually literally went to his cousin, was one of these guys, and just did a song. He made up a song right there on the spot, just like fucking around with his guitar, and he just recorded it with the tape recorder and the microphone, and that's what went into the final sound mix, which is to me fascinating. You know, like
Yeah, that's cool.
it's such a like hands-on approach. You know, we go back to like you were saying, gorilla. It's like, you know, just make it work kind of thing, and that philosophy.
Hmm.
Um, so also in the sound department, Robert Rodriguez also did the sound. Um, him and Carlos Gallardo, our El Mariachi main star, did special effects. And then in the stunts department, we have a Mario Hernandez and a Manuel Salinas, if I'm reading that correctly.
Hmm.
Um, now, when we get to the cast, like I said, they have 43 people listed in the cast. I don't think it's necessary to focus on everybody. I'm just focusing on the main people. Um, we had El Marachi, like I said, played by Carlos Gallardo. Um, this guy, my heart bleeds for this guy. Because, yeah, we know that this isn't the one that people saw. This played at film festivals, got dumped on video. It probably had a limited release. But the reality is it wasn't like Desperado where a lot of people went to see that. So my heart bleeds for Carlos because this guy, I think he had charisma. I think he had some acting chops. He only has like 20 credits. And I feel bad for the guy because I feel like he does have enough charisma where like he could have had a bigger career. He did work, he would go on to work in stuff like you said, the cameo in Desperado, the small
Hmm.
part. He was in Planet Terror in
Hmm.
'07. He was in the Saska sisters debut, Dead Hooker in a Trunk. They were heavily inspired by Robert Rodriguez, and they're big in the horror, doing genre stuff. And they made like a little $2,000 film, and they managed to get him to be in that. And then he's been in a bunch of other like indie stuff, you know, here and there, but he never really, sadly, had this huge career, which I think is unfortunate. I think he
Yeah, it
should
is
have.
unfortunate because out of everyone in the movie, he's the best actor on
Yeah,
screen. He
yeah,
by
like
far,
I,
even though, again, like you said, most of these people are either local townsfolks or they're friends
yeah,
of
yeah,
Robert's or friends
yeah,
of Robert's friends. And that's kind of how they all know each other and how they kind of filmed the film. But you can tell that Carlos was the star. I don't know. Are you familiar with Peter Marquardt and what he's done? Was that his first film too? I know he's done to do some other stuff.
I have to look what I have. He has gone on to do some other stuff, like which I'll get into in a second. Like he's done
I think
voices for
he's
video games. He's done
Yeah,
voiceover
and
work
he's done a
for
lot
video
of
games.
stuff. I think he's just worked with Robert pretty much. It
Yeah,
looks like for the most part, he's done a
yeah,
lot
he's
of stuff
done
with Robert. Yeah.
with him. I'm not gonna lie. I think maybe it fit the role. I was hoping for Peter to go a little tone down the bigness a little bit. That would be the one critique, him and Azul, which I'll get into a second. But I still think, you know, he had fun with it, and that's all that matters. Um,
Yeah, he's over the top for sure. But yeah, besides
yeah,
Pete, but again, besides
it
Carlos,
worked.
Peter's the only one that really has
Yeah,
really done much. And again, they've
yeah,
only done stuff with Robert. So this
yeah,
goes to show that this was a homegrown, made
yeah.
by your friends, guerrilla type movie. No industry insiders were involved in this one.
No, no,
How
no.
it
And
was made.
we'll get into the fun story behind the making of it in a few minutes, and then people will really go like, "Wow!" If you haven't heard the story of like how it all came together, your mind will
That's
probably
cool.
be blown because it's interesting. Um, I did notice that Carlos did a movie before El Mariachi, which I'd never heard of, something called the Banio, or if it, I can't read my own chicken scratch, which is really bad. It's either the Barrio Kings or the Banio Kings in '85, which is his very first film.
Probably
So he
Barrio.
actually did,
Probably
he
Barrio.
did Barrio. He did have one feature under his belt. Um, Next, I guess I would talk about our main female lead, um, Consuela Gomez. Her name is
Hmm.
Domino in the movie. She plays the love interest. Um, I think they were just desperate. They were looking for somebody. Originally, from what I understand, Carlos had a contact of a Spanish soap opera star. Believe it or not, his family knew that this girl, and I can't think of her name, and it fell through at the last moment. And because she wasn't available, they were desperate, scrambling, trying to find somebody to take over like this female lead role. And Carlos knew Consuelo, and she had always wanted to enter acting, but she had never done any acting. So they managed to get her to do the part. And considering she doesn't have any acting previous experience, I think next to Carlos, I think she did a decent job. I mean, obviously, there's always room for improvement, but when you're taking somebody off the street and saying, "Hey, you act," you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I think it's decent enough. Next, we have Azul. Azul is a local drug dealer that was unfortunately thrown into jail by our main bad guy, Boko, Peter Marquette. And he's out for revenge. And when we get into the story, we'll talk a little more about that. Um, he's another guy that, as far as I know, hasn't done anything beyond this, unfortunately.
Mm-mm.
And,
Nope.
um, for a guy playing like a thug-like character, it's serviceable. Is there room for improvement? But like you said, touching back on the homegrown, considering everything, I think he puts out an enjoyable performance. And then finally, we go to Peter Marquette, who's the big bag drug dealer, big bad drug dealer from America. He's the one gringo in the film, and he's representing the big bad boy. And he met. We'll go more into this when I go into behind the scenes stuff, but he met Robert Rodriguez in part of a drug experiment testing center to raise money that Robert did to raise money for the film. I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but that's how he initially met Robert Rodriguez. He was in Desperado. He did Wing Commander, the game in '95. He did the voice. He did Spy Kids 3. He was in a movie called The Shadow that came out in 2011. And I think that's pretty much all I wrote. I don't know. There might be a little bit more, but I don't think there's too much more. Like you said, he tended to work with Robert Rodriguez, which is cool because it says, hey, Robert he didn't forget his past. He didn't forget his friends, and he still tried to help them out and, give them
Yeah.
little parts here and there, which I think is cool. And then we have, of course, we can't not talk about our main man, Robert Rodriguez. Um, Feel free, by the way, to dive in anytime you want at all. You know that, I hope. But
You're doing great.
he has 51 films under his belt. Now, I didn't write down all 51 films. These are the ones that stuck out to me. Now, I didn't see Hypnotic. I know you were talking about that last night, and you said it was a shit show. Essentially, I'm ad-libbing a little, Mike, but you said it was a total shit show. I didn't see that one.
It's so bad it's kind of good. It's an incredibly bad film, and I think he knows that. But yeah, it's
It's
really
sad.
interesting.
It's sad both for him because I love Rodriguez. It's sad for fucking Ben Affleck because that fucker he turned his career around from making some of these movies that he got laughed at, like
Hmm.
some of these stupid movies. He was starting to turn his career around. I don't care about the DC shit. Forget about that for a second. But then he makes a movie like this and it's like, dude, come on, you don't need the fucking money. Go back to making quality projects. You know what I mean? Like, why are you
Yeah,
doing that? You don't need the $10
because he's a
million dollar.
hustler. He's a hustler. It's the money. I
You don't
mean,
fucking
again,
need
we'll
it.
go
Make
back.
good quality products. Write your scripts. Get together with Damon and put out a good project that you get behind, you get your heart behind. Like the Nike
Yeah,
movie
I
was
agree.
decent. Not my favorite of his directing movies, but the Nike movie was decent. So
Yeah, I
that
did
one
like that.
stuck out for me. Believe it or not, right after Desperado, or no, between Mariachi and Desperado, he did a movie. I think it was for Cinemax called Road Racers, which is like a
Hmm.
race movie. Not perfect, but I remember having a good time with that one.
Fun. It's a really fun movie. It's really like
Yeah,
50s racing. And
yeah.
Arquette is coked out of his mind and having a
That's what I
blast.
heard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's outlandish. So that one stuck out for me. Dust Till Dawn. I mean, I love Dust Till Dawn. It's such a ridiculous, over the top, and obviously we know Tarantino had his hands in the plot, you know. And then you got fucking
Hmm.
Tarantino. He's not the most talented actor in the world, but if you give him the right part, I think he can play these ridiculous characters. And I think that's, if you hone in on those ridiculous characters, Tarantino can give a great performance, because I know people shit on him and his acting, and like something like the Django Unchained, that was god awful. That he shouldn't have had
Yeah.
any acting in that. But this part is such a fucked up weirdo character that I actually loved his character in Dust Till Dawn. I don't have any nitpicking on that role. But then we have the Spy Kids movie, which I have never seen any of them. I just
I've seen them
I'm
all.
open to them. I know, well, you have kids, so right, I'm sure. And
Seen them
I
all.
wanted to support Rodriguez, but I just can't get behind it. It just didn't appeal to me. Big
Those are
con.
actually out of all of his kids' movies, which if you look, him and his kid have made
Yeah,
a ton. That
yeah.
the Spy Kids movies are the best. And you're the
Oh,
last
they're
two.
entertaining. Yeah. Okay,
The
I'll have to
first
put them on the
two,
list.
they're solid movies beyond just
Yeah,
being kids movies. The first two
yeah.
are really good.
Oh, okay.
After that, they get schlocky. I think the last one they did was like five, and he's created
Oh,
a
okay.
whole like sub world in
Oh,
that
okay.
whole, like they're all connected with Shark Boy, Lava Girl, the Spy Kids. They have this whole world of now Netflix movies that are only. There's one called We Will Be Heroes, which is about
Oh,
Shark
okay.
Girl and Lava Boy's kids.
Oh,
Him
okay.
and his kid have created this whole genre of kids movies, basically, that follows this whole world of
It's got like his
Shark
own
Boy
little
and
mini
Lava Girl.
MCU going on.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I
Yeah,
mean, if you have kids and you like Rodriguez, you want to support him. They're not. There's much worse kids crap out there, but
yeah.
he's got like two of them on Netflix right now, and
Oh,
they're
cool.
both pretty interesting. One of them's a new Spy Kids sequel that went right to Netflix, and
Oh,
then
okay.
there was one called We Could Be Heroes, which is a spinoff from that Shark Boy Lava Girl. But then he did one called Shorts that was theatrical back in like 2010 or
Uh-huh.
11. Another
Okay.
kids movie, which is really funny,
Yeah.
over the top, silly, but it's not bad like for adults either. That one's also one that I would recommend out of his
Oh,
three
definitely.
kids
Very
films.
cool.
If you don't have kids and you want to like dive into some of that, I would
Yeah.
do the Spy Kids 1, 2, and Shorts. Those are the most
Very cool.
entertaining.
Yeah, I'm not opposed, being as immature as I am. I'm not opposed to kids films, but I just for some reason I never had the opportunity to see those ones. So I'm gonna have to make sure I put the first two on the hit list. And I saw the trailer
Yeah,
for Shorts, and Shorts actually did look like a really good time.
it's fun. It's
Yeah,
silly and fun. I enjoy
yeah,
those three. But Rodriguez is hit or miss with this stuff.
yeah, yeah. No, that's what I feel like.
As you're
His
seeing, as
career.
we're talking them through, there he's got
Yeah,
some hits and he's got some misses. But again, those movies work for kids. Like some of my
yeah,
kids
yeah.
hold some of those in high regard.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely. And it's cool that, listen, it takes a lot of, in my opinion, it takes a lot of balls to venture out your comfort zone. So like if you're known as the action guy, even like with actors, I give them a lot of credit if you're known as the comedy actor to try drama, because you're used to that world. And yes, you can pivot because you're an actor, but still it is a slight adjustment. And the same thing with
yeah.
directors. If you're used to shooting bullets and that's your thing and that's what you're known for, kicking ass and shooting bullets, to make that pivot, it's a different world. So you got to kind of roll the dice and kind of hope for the best. So I give anyone credit for just stepping out of their comfort zone. That in itself, I think
Mhm.
is great. Um,
And the kids' movies are cheap and they make money.
yeah,
They're all, I think they're like that. Spy Kids like
yeah,
movies, those are his most successful. Those are where he's made
yeah,
his money. Like
yeah.
that's
Oh,
his franchise. That's his bread and butter.
well, hey, listen, I wish I could get some of that bread and butter. I got to talk to Robert.
Yeah.
What am I
And
doing
those are
wrong?
fun movies.
I'm doing the
And
wrong
he
fucking thing
makes,
because I'm broke as fuck.
yeah, make kids movies. I mean, you even see a
That's
lot of
it.
adult writers making kids books because kids books make a lot of money and so
Yeah,
do kids movies. So
no, that's it.
can't blame him
I'm quitting
for,
the YouTube channel. I'm going out to write kids books. I'll be
let's do it, make
broke as
that
an earth.
money.
Yeah.
But if it's
Uh,
good enough, well, we as parents will go and pay the money to do it and see it and be a part of it. So
Yeah,
I'll
not,
always pay money to see his kids movies and take my kids to him. I'll always do it. We'll watch them. They're
well,
good for the most part.
I will have to change my bad ways and try to check some of them out because I'm not a film snob by any means, so I don't ever want to come across that way. But those are things I remember seeing the trailer for and just being like, oh, okay, what's this? And I'm realizing it's a kid's trailer, but just not being like blown away by the trailers. But on the same token, I was conflicted because I do love most of Robert Rodriguez's content. So it's like the yin and the yang. Which way do I go? Support Robert Rodriguez or stay away from the trailer that I'm a little on the fence about? You know what I mean? But I'm glad to hear such good things about the first two films. I'm definitely going to be checking
Yeah,
those out.
give him a try, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, they're not going to hurt. But his action
totally.
stuff is definitely better for us. For us,
Yeah.
well, not hypnotic. Let's ignore hypnotic ever existed.
I'm glad. I'm glad I'm going to ignore that. And that one's a free option because I got Peacock, so it's on Peacock.
If
Um,
you could give it a try, maybe have some beers and just be prepared to laugh. I
well, it is
think
St.
it's
Patrick's
probably
Day, so
possible.
I better go get more than a 6 pack. I better.
There you go. Ben Affleck is like just barely there. You could tell
Yeah.
in between every take he's smoking like 52 cigarettes and having 3 shots of whiskey and coming back out, reading the weird dialogue and just like half high the whole time. It's like, oh my
Oh,
gosh. It's a
oh
mess of
man.
a movie. It is so bad. But that's the thing is Rodriguez will make a mess and then he'll make
And then I'll
something
make
good
something
and then
fucking
something a
amazing.
mess. And then, he does the again, let's go to the big movie that he did with Mark Millar in his comic book. What is it?
You talking about? Yeah, I was gonna touch base on that one because I didn't want
Yeah,
to.
go ahead.
Sin City, right? Sin City and Sin City
Yeah,
Two.
Sin City, and Road Racers. If you watch Road Racers and Sin City, you'll see why he was hired because a lot of the visuals in Road Racers is kind of similar to what Sin City
Yeah.
came, like, kind of took from. So anyway, FYI, if you haven't seen Road Racers, I think it used to be on Showtime. It used to be like
Oh,
a
okay.
Showtime original. I don't know if it's still streaming on Paramount or not.
Yeah. But
It's
that
an interesting watch.
you can see a movie like Sin City, and you could see that that's a movie that he wasn't just a gun for hire. Like you could see that was a movie that just like I'll talk about Battle Angel Alita in a second briefly. Um, he loved the source material, and the fact that he was able to get Frank Miller to co-direct, he was so committed to making sure that he got the comic book, the essence of the comic book, as close as possible on screen without sacrificing anything. And that both, even the second one, a little bit weaker, but still good, were two great films in his resume. Like you just said, like they're two fantastic films. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go crazy because I do want to get into the actual film, but I'm going to touch base on Machete real quickly. The first one was fun. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but you're either along for that ridiculous ride from the get go because it presents itself as nothing other than ridiculous from the minute it starts, the minute it ends, and you're either along for that ride or you're not. You're not
Mm-hmm.
expecting serious. You're expecting ridiculous, but it's a fun movie. It is. I mean, and it made money from what I understand. I don't think that was a. I
It
don't
did.
think it lost money. I think it was pretty
Cool.
commercially successful.
Yeah.
The sequel, I wasn't as blown away by the sequel. Not a bad movie, but I think it's just kind of run its course with the first one. It's kind of like when you do like part 12 of Friday the 13th. It's like, okay, we get it. You got all the essence in the first one. Um, and then Battle Angel Alita, that didn't do well at the box office. I think part of the problem with that is I think that was right after the pandemic started. But I like
Yeah.
Battle Angel Alita. Not a perfect film, but again, based off a manga, and I had a fun time with it. You know what I mean? They were talking about possibly a sequel, but nowadays it seems like most of these films they're not hitting the home runs in the movie theaters. Like
Yeah,
you,
that's one I have not seen. That's not
yeah,
like
yeah,
actually one of the
just what I thought.
two movies, the two of like his like 22 actual features, not documentaries, TV or shorts. I've
Mhm.
out of the features 22 or 23 he's made, I've only missed like two. The one that
Yeah,
he did that was based off the TV show, the 911, whatever that one was, and
yeah,
then the one we just talked about. Those are the only two of his I haven't seen.
yeah.
So
Well,
goes to show I still see his movies just because again it's that Sundance connection. I'll see them all. But for some
yeah.
reason that Battle Angel, I need to see it. I own it. but
Oh, you do.
I
Well, there you
haven't
go.
seen it yet. I gotta open it up.
Don't even get me started on the watch pile, man. Dude,
I
it's
know.
fucking ridiculous. It's like
I know.
we can make fun of crackheads and people with drug problems, but us movie people, like me especially, I'm not gonna put you in that label.
Yeah.
Like as far as
No, it's true.
the drug comparison, but like I just get in this habit, and it's so bad. It's like, okay, I know I'm gonna love that. I'm gonna watch it eventually. And the next thing you know, I've got the Leaning Tower of Pisa as far as my movie to watch pile, and it's like, come on, stop doing that. Bad, bad. But it's
Yeah,
too
my wife
tempting.
put a kibosh on most of that, so
Yeah,
I
well,
do have
understand.
a pretty good collection. But yeah, for the most part,
Yeah.
the last few years I've slowed my roll. But I do
Well,
miss collecting.
you're
I just ran out of
smart.
space.
You're smart because if it's a movie that you're going to go back and rewatch, then it's definitely worth having in the collection. But even if it's something that you like and you respect, if you're not going to rewatch it within a reasonable amount of time, is it really worth having in the collection? You know what I mean? I don't know. There's an
Yeah,
argument to be
it's
made on
true.
both sides of that, but still. All right. So I'm thinking now, if you want, we can actually start talking. We talked about the actors and people that on the crew. We could actually go into a little bit of the story of how this thing came to be.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
um, like I said, feel free to chime in at any time. I'm going to start, and basically, we have him living in, I believe, Austin, Texas. I think he grew up, and he's
Yeah.
a young kid. Uh, he had this household where his dad would buy the newest technology whenever it was available. He would come home with all sorts of new technology. And one day, his dad came home in the '80s, back when camcorders were this freaking big, and you had to put them over your shoulder, and you're like, they were these big monstrous things. His dad brought one home, and he fell in love with it. Now, the way they were back then, I don't know if you remember, they actually had a wire that attached to VCR, so you had to drag the thing around if you wanted to shoot stuff. And he would go around making films with his friends, just stupid films with blood ketchup packets to stand make up for blood, and water guns for for fights, for pistol fights, and all this stuff. And then he would take another VCR and he would edit between the two VCRs, and that's how he would put together these little short films. Um, and he grew up in this environment just from a young age, just making a ton of short films, a lot of them crappy, with his buddies. Kind of like Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They had like a similar type background in that sense. When he got to the high school point in his career, he managed to convince his teachers, instead of giving like book reports and term papers, he would actually turn in video reports. So again, his whole life growing up early on, from a child all the way even up until he entered college, he was constantly making movies on this little shitty camcorder. We It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's a cool story.
Yeah, it is. I was fascinated by it. Then he gets to college, and one point of story that I missed is he met Carlos in high school. Carlos
Mhm.
was an exchange student, and they became like best friends. Uh, he goes into college and he enters the film program. And at first, his grades aren't good enough to get in the film program. But the film professor sees some of the short films that he's been doing, because he's trying to convince the professor to let him be part of the program. And the film professor realizes that even his shitty films made on, like, this crappy camcorder are better than most of his film students, because although they don't look good, because these film students are shooting on 16 millimeter film at the time, because that's what you had available, his films were better. They were better stories. They were shot better. They were edited better. So eventually he gets into the film program, um, and he makes a film called Bedhead. Bedhead is an 8-minute film. It's a black and white film. It's in black and white. He actually made it for $800, and he earned that money by entering a local um, scientific laboratory that did test studies. Like, they would test, like, maybe like their version of Tylenol on people, and you'd have to be part of this experiment for like a weekend, and they'd give you $800, or they'd give you $300.
Mhm.
Man, all different ones, like diet drugs, and
I
if
think
you
it
were
was a cholesterol study, is what I heard was the main
for
one
for
that
for,
he
for
did.
the El Mariachi film, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of college kids, they did this. A lot of college kids are broke. They don't have jobs. They're barely skating by. So a lot of college kids would do these kind of things, and he did that for 3 days to come up with the budget for Bedhead for $800. And that actually had some relative success. He shot it on 16. He transferred to video and edited it on video. And then he submitted that to a bunch of film festivals, and it actually did pretty well in a lot of film festivals. And with that in place, that was part of the seed money he had when he would next take his next step, which would be El Mariachi. El Mariachi with Carlos, he wanted to take the next step. He wanted to make a feature film. Um, he knew that he could get Carlos to be the lead actor, and he had a little bit of money, like $2,000 that he had won in film festivals from Bedhead. And he's like, well, how do I do this? And he's like, hey, I know, I'll go back to the medical testing. And like you said, he got part of a medical study, which is a month-long medical study. And in that month-long medical study, he was testing a cholesterol drug, and they were going to pay him, I think they were going to pay him either $3,000 or $4,000, which would bring him up to the $7,000 he would use to make El Mariachi. And I'm probably missing a couple things because I'm trying not to look at my notebook too much here, but
Oh, you're doing great.
yeah, so he basically was in this medical study. And what he loved about the medical study was it was a cholesterol drug, so it wasn't going to really have too many long-term effects on his body. It's not like he's like doing anything too dangerous. They fed him, they gave him a place to stay, and he also met the lead villain, Peter Marquette. Sorry, Marquette, if I pronounced your name wrong. Um, and he wanted to become an actor, and they became friends. He was his bunkmate, and he ended up using him as the lead villain. Um, and he used that as a chance also to finish writing up the screenplay for El Mariachi. So a month later, he's stuck in this medical testing center. He comes out. He's got the $7,000 he needs to make this action film, El Mariachi. And basically, he's trying to think of a movie he can make that's an action movie because he likes the action genre that he can do on a low budget. And he gets this idea in his head of, why don't I make a movie about a guy and mistaken identity? And that's essentially what at the core of it is. The movie's about a guy that gets mistaken for another guy who's a guy that's like a gangster type guy with a guitar full of guns. Meanwhile, our main character is just a simple El Mariachi player, just a simple musician, and that's what it is at its core. That's what the film is. A simple case of mistaken identity with a bunch of action thrown in, and a little bit of a love story. So he finishes this month-long study. He comes up with the rest of the money he needs, which brings his budget up to $7,000. And he manages to borrow a 16 millimeter film camera from one of his friends he met in film school. Now, just to touch base a little bit for those that aren't versed in the world of filmmaking, back then, like I said, people shot on film. They didn't shoot on video as far as going to film festivals and feature films and stuff like that. So even back then, to shoot 3 minutes worth of 16 millimeter film, I think at that time would cost you $65. That's 3 minutes worth of film, and that's hoping that you get it right in that one take. So this was a very expensive venture. What we'll talk to a little bit more as we go into it. What's interesting is throughout this film, a lot of the film, he only did one take. Like 99.9% of the film, when he shot scenes, he planned things in his head because he knew he was going to be the one editing the film. And because he knew he was going to be the one editing the film, he planned things in his head, and he was just very, very careful because he didn't have a money hose that he could just pull out like a Hollywood studio and just start spraying it everywhere. Oh, guess what? We had a bad performance. I can pull Stanley Kubrick and do 99 takes. No, 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 no. That wasn't an option. He had $7,000, and he was probably going to use every single penny and be lucky if he was going to be able to get it done in $7,000.
He filmed it in long shots and sequential because of
Yeah,
that, to make it easy for editing and to know where he's going, and
yeah,
because one shots open wide like he did, it
yeah,
makes the film, and the thing that make like this style makes the film have this frantic energy
yeah,
that no matter what you say about El Mariachi, yeah, it doesn't have any actors that anybody knows, it doesn't have much, but what it has is a frenetic, kinetic energy that no other
yeah,
film has. And this comes from Rodriguez's hustle. And
yeah,
this is everything you're explaining shows that this is not somebody who's wrapped up in the fundamentals and looking for mise en scene or anything. This is someone who's trying to make a living doing what he loves, and that's making movies
Yeah.
that people enjoy, genre films, fun stuff that maybe, although some people say trash movies, that you can watch with a group of friends drinking beers, having fun. And
But
that's
that's what I
kind of what
want. I
he
want to have
did.
fun. I want to have beer.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to have beers. Come on, it's St. Patrick's Day for Christ's sake.
And
Give me a beer for
that's
Christ's
what
sake.
he
Where's my green
does.
beer? God damn it!
We need
You
some
know,
beers, yeah. But it just shows that that's what he does. He's not worried
yeah,
about the mise en scene. He's not worried about those technical things. He's getting in there and getting
yeah.
what he needs
Getting
to do
dirty.
to get to the fun, the down and dirty. And the movie's quick, 82 minutes, and filmed sequential like that. It was smart. I mean, a lot of what he did is just smart. And people still do a lot of this stuff, but again, a lot of this stuff people don't do. But we'll
Yeah.
talk more about that later on. Hey, keep going.
Yeah. So another thing, when you talk about that stuff, a lot of things too, like the movie in some ways can be flawed, and I'll just touch on that.
Oh, totally.
But what people also don't realize is this guy was smart. He knew the Mexican home video market. He would rent, like a lot of us film geeks would go and rent those B movies by Corman or what's the other, Full Moon. You know,
Uh-huh.
they had same thing with action movies, and especially the Mexican home video market. And he'd watch these movies with his buddy Carlos and some of his other friends, and he'd realize he'd see these movies that were complete and utter trash. And even some of those movies had a budget of, like, even let's say at the time $400,000, 500,000, maybe the really fancy one that had some money to throw around, the money hose, as I mentioned, maybe $1 million. And he said, you know what? I can make something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
his game plan, this is how smart I think the guy was. He's like, you know what? This is going to be my fucking business card. That's all this film's going to be. I'm going to take this movie, I'm going to make it, shoot it on 16 millimeter film. I'm going to plan all my shots in my head, very careful, edit in my own head, and then I'm going to edit on video. Most filmmakers, they take the 16 millimeter film and they have it developed, and that's where the cost comes. So what you can do is you can transfer the 16 millimeter film to video and then edit on video, and that's what he did. And he
Oh,
saved himself a shit ton of money. So his game plan was, okay, shoot it on 16 very carefully, $7,000 budget, dump it to video and edit on video, and then dump it on the Mexican film market, because even if I just get a little bit of my money back and it gets distribution, I don't have to make a big name for myself right then and there. I just got to make a little bit of money back so then I can make another one. And then eventually, once I have some films under my belt and I have some more practical experience under my belt making feature films, because it's his first feature film, then I can go to Hollywood and say, hey, guess what? I made 3 shitty Mexican action movies under my resume. I've made 50 short films since I was a kid. I have some clout. Give me a shot. What ended up happening, and I'll just touch on it briefly, we could talk about it more, is he got lucky, and we'll just say it is a lot of luck. I mean, a lot of hard work, but a lot of luck. And Columbia saw his edited videotape, and even though it had flaws and it needed stuff fixed, they saw that and they said, you know what? We see something here. We see some creativity. We see the flaws and we see the issues, but I see some good stuff here. In There's some meat on the bones, so to speak. And because
mm-hmm.
there's some meat on the bones, we can take that, and we're not going to be able to give it a huge theatrical release, but we can maybe get some prestige by playing it at Sundance. Maybe we'll take a chance, and then it'll probably be we can do something good with it when it hits the home video market at the very least. So he didn't plan for this to become like this Sundance favorite,
Mm-hmm.
or even, like I said, he had no. I mean, I'm sure he would have. If someone hands you $1 million, you're not going to say no. But on the same token, he didn't plan for that to be the game plan. He just thought, like I said, I'll make it for the Mexican home video market, maybe make enough from that to make my next Mexican film for the Mexican home video market, and then eventually I'll work my way up. But he got lucky, hard work and luck, and he ended up having a fucking distribution deal with Columbia, which led to Road Racers, the one we were just talking about that was made for Showtime, which then
Mm-hmm.
led to Desperado. And from there, his career was cemented. He had his foot in the door, and he had his chance to play with the big toys, so to speak. Um,
Yep.
so that's I guess, the story of how he got to the money and how it kind of came together for the actual filming. And then he filmed over the summertime. He only had the camera for like 2 weeks because his buddy from film school needed it back. So more pressure on him and Carlos and everybody to make the film. What's interesting is another smart thing that he did, Mike, was when he was filming stuff, if he didn't need you for the entire day, he would have people come in after they had breakfast, but then they would shoot for a couple hours and he would dismiss them before lunch so he wouldn't have to buy anybody lunch. So I know it sounds
Mhm.
like he's being a fucking cheapskate, but he's just thinking like, hey, how can I stop the money hose from overflowing? He was
Yeah.
always using he was always using things that he had at his disposal. So the main character, Mariachi, has a guitar case. In that guitar case, there's a guitar. Guess what? The main bad guy also has a guitar case. They're the same guitar case.
Hmm.
And one of them was really beat up. Like the front of it was really beat up. So
Ripped up. Yeah.
he just didn't show that. He would show the guitar case open. Um, so there were all these little things that he did to make sure he wasn't pulling out the money hose, and he was able to carefully plan and execute a film within the means that he had to do so. So um, I think that kind of like touches on how he brought everything together and used the tools at his disposal to make the film. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, or
I think
anything?
one thing I'd like to
We
mention
talk about
that
the
I
story.
find one thing I find really interesting is we see very similar stories from similar filmmakers around that time, going back to your Jersey roots to Kevin Smith, for example, and these guys who literally just pick up a camera at the time and videotape and film, and whether it's black and white or whether it's worrying about those things which nowadays we don't have to worry about. We don't have to worry about the
Yeah.
cost of films. People can pull out their pull out their iPhone, like the Florida Project, and make an entire film with an iPhone. So you can kind of do whatever. And then we saw people using mini DV cameras in the 2000s, and
Yes.
we still have some really bad quality in that. But the reality is that any like these kind of there's something in the water in the early 90s with filmmakers where they realized we don't have to be stuck in that system that was in the 70s and 80s as much.
Yeah.
Nowadays there's a lot more with with what we just got through, the big strike, where actors should be used the way that he did and people should be compensated great. But this is 1992, much different
Yeah.
beast. I think you can't look at what he did now and think I can do that now successfully. I think going through the proper ways of, and sometimes nowadays it's YouTube, like like making shorts and putting them on YouTube or getting them in the right eyes.
Yeah.
Again, it's about starting with shorts. His concept of jumping right in with a big feature and trying to sell it like that is ballsy. And it would be
It's real
crazy if
ballsy.
someone could do it today. But I think today, what he did do is tell people like today, you can pick up your phone, you and your friends can go make something, you can put it on YouTube, it can become a success just like that. And just like he sold to Columbia, you can have something become huge and you can become part of a big machine and have a television show or get paid for your content to continue doing what you're doing, like Mr. Beast on YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
So the world is really it's different, and people have the ability to do what he did in different aspects. But to make a true feature film doing that way, of course, you'd be looked like as an asshole. And I think there was a time when he had kind of a reputation of being hard to work with because he
Oh,
still wanted
okay.
to hustle. Being
Yeah.
somebody who wants to, and to give my backstory, my wife works in film. She's a production accountant. She's in the back end. She sits in the cushy office while everyone goes out and works. And then she
Mhm.
deals with making sure the money was spent correct and getting state tax credits. And she's worked with some directors who've been those kind of hustlers, like Jim Cummings, and he had a Wolf
Yeah.
movie that she was going to work with. And she quickly jumped ship when she realized what kind of movie it was. But he does that kind of guerrilla filmmaking, and
Yeah.
there still is guerrilla filmmakers like doing that Robert Rodriguez thing, but you're not seeing them jump like Rodriguez did from guerrilla to becoming making Jurassic Park. Even the guys like Trevorrow who went on to make Jurassic Park, they were making independent films the correct way. Started with music videos, shorts
Yeah.
in college, all that stuff, and then burst their way up where they finally get enough money and enough respect to make a feature. So it's crazy that he was able to do that. But I think anyone today, if they were to watch the special features or read his book, think that they could do that. Not exactly, but there's ways of doing it to be successful. If you want to be a hustler, which I think
Yeah.
his thing was, I want to do what I love, which is being behind the camera and make money. You can do the same thing today with social media, making shorts and starting there. So I think that telling kids and the youth and those who really
Yeah.
want to get behind and grab a camera, you don't really need to start in school. You don't need to go that route. You can do what you
Yeah.
want. You can go into video. You can make a career doing YouTube. You can do anything.
Oh,
But I
absolutely.
think I think that
Inspiring.
that people like Rodriguez, people like Smith, people like Tarantino, who started from the bottom, who were film fans, who we started to see, who were fans of that 70s stuff, kind of making their own thing in the 90s. And
Yeah.
now today we have people making films on digital. So I think it's awesome that the hustle that Rodriguez had, and there's
Yeah.
other
Definitely.
filmmakers today that I think are still trying to do that, still trying to hustle. We see some of the cool stuff that filmmakers like the Daniels have done, how they started and hustled together and made YouTube
Mhm.
stuff and went from there. And the guys who did Talk to Her, even, which was a
Yeah.
big, or Talk to Me, which was a big
Yeah.
horror film from Sundance last year, they were YouTube successes who got money from YouTube and now are film directors. So I think that there's ways of people today taking what he did and kind of
And
pivoting with it
altering it, adjusting it. Yeah.
and
Yeah. No, for
finding a
sure.
similar but different success. But are you going to
Yeah.
have Columbia Pictures come to you and say, here's $1 million, you're going to be on the big screen? No,
Yeah.
but you might have a company say, hey, we like what you're doing. Will you show our product
Yeah.
and we'll throw you 15K per video?
Yeah.
Why not? Right?
Like you said, it's such a different time period. What was available to you as a filmmaker back then, and what's available to you
Yep.
now. I guarantee he would have done something like on Vimeo or YouTube if he had that at
Guaranteed
his
it.
disposal. And
It's that hustle.
part of the things like also like you got to keep in mind too, like I know I touched with you based briefly on this, I think a day or two ago. Like as far as like the guerrilla elements of the filmmaking, like in that town, Carlos grew up in that town, so he
Yeah, they
knew
knew
everybody in
everybody.
town. So like he knew everybody. So like there were elements like using a gun with squibs and stuff like that that were could be dangerous, but he had the permission of the police. They were watching him as they were doing everything, like they were
They gave
guiding
them
him.
the guns.
Yeah, no, they did.
Police
They
gave
literally,
them.
yeah, they literally gave him the guns, and they were sitting there watching. He had permission from the mayor. This guy was so smart that the local newscasters, he knew he wanted to get a positive spin because they were going to be shooting in this town. So he gave the local newscasters, the two local newscasters in the town, one played the bartender in the film, the other guy played the hotel clerk, just so
Ah,
that he would have them on their side. So then
that's funny.
anytime they talked about making the film, like on the Daily News, somebody going around shooting this little film, they had nothing but positive things to say because they were part of it. So they're not gonna shit. They're not gonna shit on a movie that they're involved in. You know what I mean?
That's
So
true.
like there was a lot of smart strategy. And then another thing is also with him, like, okay, yeah, they might have been on 80s crappy camcorder, but he had been shooting since the 80s. And like
Yeah.
this, whether you're shooting on your phone, whether you're shooting on a 16 millimeter camera, a 35 millimeter camera, one of these red cameras, what you're shooting on, you still learn to compose shots, by just doing, maybe by
Yep.
reading, but doing. So, but when he made the transition from shooting on that crappy camcorder that his dad had, that he probably had for 10, 15 years, when he made that transition to 16, it wasn't that big a deal. It was just learning how to load film and how to operate the 16 millimeter film camera. But they can't teach you how to compose shots, how to tell a story, how to come up with an action shot, how to set up. That's just from doing. So there were all
Yeah.
these other things that I think led to him making a semi-successful first feature. Like some of the
Yeah.
sequences that he did were pretty impressive. Like when we get into the story, we'll talk about some of the action sequences. I mean, they were very planned out, but I think they were pretty impressive, like what he did with what he had. Um,
Yes. Rough
but
and
anyway,
raw, but so much talent. Again, the
yeah,
talent cannot be excused. The talent was
yeah,
there,
yeah,
no matter if he had
yeah. No, absolutely.
7,000 or 7 million. Which
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
we have proof of that he's
yeah,
just as talented, and he
yeah,
could
yeah,
make a similar movie for seven
yeah.
thousand or 7 million.
But anyway, enough about the behind the scenes stuff. The story we're going to touch on. I feel like the story is kind of, like most action films. Let's face it. You go to an action film, you're looking to see some guns, or you're looking to see some shot being shit. Your average action viewer person, the main point of an action film is to just see one action scene, go to another action sequence, and maybe you get a halfway decent story. But you're not going in. I think most people aren't going in expecting like a spectacular story. Yeah, the story is pretty
Hmm.
basic. The story is about uh, a, this drug guy, a drug dealer. He's in a prison. He's still conducting business. In the beginning, he's conducting business in a jail cell. He manages to break out. Right after he breaks out, we see this El Mariachi player walking into town. And as he's walking into town, we see this little turtle that's also walking into town. And he enters this small town, and he's just this humble guy looking for work. And then from there, it goes from there to we cut back and forth between that guy, our hero, the El Mariachi player, and then we go back and forth between this character that I just talked about that broke out of jail, which I apologize, I didn't mention his name. His name is Azul. And we
Hmm.
hear Azul's story. And Azul, like I said, he's this drug dealer that was put in jail by his boss, Moko. And Moko is this white gringo that's this drug lord of this town. And he's out for revenge against Moko. Now, while he's out for revenge, unfortunately, our El Marashi player gets mistaken for Azul because, like I said, Azul is the guy carrying a guitar case full of guns. So trouble ensues, and some of Moko's men start going after the El Marashi player, and he finds himself in hot water, so to speak, I guess you could say, because he's on the run from Moko's men who think he's Azul, the drug dealer. And then he's also at one point gets in trouble with Moko himself. Along the way, he meets this local bartender at a bar, whose main character, her name is Domino, and that becomes a love interest. And she's kind of looking out for him, and they find like a connection, and there's a little bit of a romantic element there. Um, and then essentially, after everything's said and done, uh, this girl Domino that he falls in love with ends up at the end, unfortunately, ends up getting spoilers here, ends up getting shot because she's trying to protect him. And at that point, he goes from being the simple El Marachi player to becoming this guy of action, and he goes trying to avenge her death, essentially.
Hmm. That's
Um,
how it ends with
I,
him.
I, I kind of give it like I've given you a very wide scope, so I apologize to you, Mike, and my viewers. I kind of like glossed over it a little bit. If you want to fine tune any of the details that I might have missed in my brief explanation, feel free to.
Nope.
Uh,
That's the basics. I think it's funny, Mocha, if you actually know, is slang for booger. So, and these
oh, okay, I didn't
nicknames
know
that
that.
they have, if you actually look into it,
Oh,
rumors
okay.
have it in trivia on IMDb and other places have it that they're actual nicknames that Rodriguez had for them as friends.
Oh, yeah,
Like
that's
Blue
awesome.
is the nickname, Azul, and Mocha is Booger. So they're just nicknames that they had. So, anyways, yeah, there's the movie's not it's not much on plot, but again, if there's anything that El Mariachi has, it's energy. It's got this kinetic pop 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 energy
Yeah,
that kind of takes from Sam Raimi with some of those editing tricks. You could tell he was a fan of
yeah.
Sam Raimi from the Evil Dead series. At that time, he would have at least seen one and two, and
Oh, yeah.
those were really big on the spinning camera. The like really close up stuff that he does from bottom angles. There's a lot of tricks that you could tell he's like, okay, this is me being Raimi right here. You know,
Yeah.
he's picking on some of the stuff that we all watch because we're not. The truth is, we're not that much younger than Robert Rodriguez, so
Yeah.
he grew up on a lot of the similar stuff that we did, stuff from the late '70s and '80s, and you see a lot of that in El Mariachi. There's also some Keystone Cop stuff. There's a lot of fast pace where he speeds up little bits for humor, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
running, especially
With
with
the
the cop
with the piano
scene
player at the bar. Yeah, yeah.
and the piano player, the police. There's just like really silly little things he does where he speeds it up. And again, this is all for Rodriguez. He wrote it, he chopped
Yeah.
it. I mean, what does he say? Shot, chopped, and scripted or whatever by
Yeah,
Robert
yeah.
Rodriguez. It's all him. He writes
Mm.
and directs these movies, and you could tell that this is all his baby. But again, it's not perfect. It's
Yeah.
fun, but it's not perfect. The acting in this movie, you got to say it. It's some of it is just
Yeah. Yeah.
eye-rollingly bad. Now, there's two ways you can watch this film. You can watch it in its original, but spruced up Spanish language with the subtitle, or
Mm.
the way that I discovered that makes the film even more fun is the dubbed version. The dubbed version is a whole hell of a lot of fun. It actually makes the film seem more comedic. It kind of fits it, like as if you're watching an
Yeah.
old kung fu movie that's been dubbed from the
Mm.
80s. It has this kind of energy to it. And the guy, Booger, who plays Mocha, you could tell he does his own voice, and he's even
Yeah.
worse. His dub's even worse than his Spanish, if you can believe that. Especially when he's screaming. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Some of the
God. Yeah.
dubs
Yeah.
are
The
really
end. That end
bad.
sequence where he's like, ah.
Ah! Oh my gosh, and the
And
dub is
the thing is,
so
he shouldn't have been that bad with the dub because he's from America. He knows English. He has no excuse. Yeah, I don't know if they mentioned it in the behind the scenes stuff, but in the book, he didn't know any Spanish, so they were actually holding up like big cue cards,
he was
and
reading.
he was
Yeah.
he's phonetically reading it. Yeah, so
Mhm.
but yeah, the
Now
dub
I'm
for
not
him.
sure what some of it was cleaned up in ADR. I know they
Yeah,
did brought some people in to clean up some of the Spanish language dialogue, and then they completely redid it all. And he was, from what I gather, was one of the only people who was brought in from the
mm,
original cast because most of them couldn't speak English.
yeah,
But it's a really funny way to watch it. It kind of
mm,
adds to the humor. It makes it more entertaining, and really is probably, if you've seen it a bunch, it's kind of the more preferred way, I think, because
yeah,
the dialogue isn't that important. And
yeah.
again, the sound is
More
off
visual.
anyway. It
Yeah,
doesn't match the lips whether you're watching it in Spanish or English, so that doesn't matter. The movie is
yeah,
what it is. Most of the film, the ADR was done after the fact, and it doesn't match the lips. It's an independent
yeah,
film. They did their best. Columbia did to fix that, but it's
yeah.
fun to watch in that way. It's a silly movie that you should watch in a silly way, whether it's
Oh,
with your
definitely.
friends, drinking and enjoying yourself, cannabis, whatever it is you want to do. It's that kind of drink and smoke and have fun type of flick, and
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it really earns its way if you want to watch the dub. It's a new way that I experienced watching it. I thought it was a lot of fun, but the
yeah,
movie after not it's not one that I've gone to and rewatched. Honestly, I have to say,
yeah,
when I first rewatched the trilogy, it was my least favorite back in the
yeah,
2000s, early 2000s. I thought it didn't really do much
mm,
for me. But as I've gotten
yeah,
older, and especially on this rewatch, it's done a lot more for me. I see
mm,
the energy. I feel you can see the pop to it.
mm,
But as a young 20-year-old, I was like, this is just kind of just dumb. And
yeah.
I've already seen the sequel, so it just didn't. And most people saw the sequel before they saw El Mariachi,
Oh yeah, no,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
And so you felt it just seemed much cheaper. But I think as time, it has a charm to it that has grown
Yeah,
on me.
no,
It's
definitely.
got
That's
this kind of fun to it. And Carlos is so sweet. And so, like, you believe him. You want to give him a hug. You want to just let him sing throughout the world, and just let his voice sing. I thought there were some funny, interesting things. I heard that the head that he keeps seeing in the dream sequences is based off of Rodriguez's head, which is a
yeah,
really bad effect.
yeah,
The dream sequences, I'm guessing this time around, I'm guessing it's supposed to be something like his ancestors he talks about a lot that are
yeah,
supposed to be leading him as an El Mariachi. I think that's them leading him and warning him of the dangers that are approaching as you see the dream sequences. And
mm,
then similar catastrophes happen afterwards, which I didn't connect in earlier rewatches. So this time I
mm,
really kind of saw that, those dream sequences being direct from his ancestors, which he talks a lot about, those El Mariachi
yeah,
ancestors. And yeah, and having seen it with in the line with the other two films and seeing the whole trilogy as a whole, like in a weekend, I have to say that it's a fun way to start the trilogy.
yeah,
And honestly, gosh, just go and rewatch all three of these, man. They're so much fun if you have
yeah. No, you
the
really can't
box
go
set.
wrong.
They're so much fun, and of course, there's going to be different returns. I think that Desperado is the most rewarding upon rewatches. It has its own messes. All these films are kind of a mess, and most
They all
Rodriguez
have
films are a
flaws.
mess.
Yeah,
He throws in everything in the kitchen sink. Like he kind of needs some help pulling things back. And there's moments, especially in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, you're like, dude, pull it back. You don't need all of these plot lines in an hour and 40-minute long movie. You're trying to shove
yeah,
everything into an hour and 40 minutes. Thankfully, it was only an hour and 45 minutes.
yeah,
But And that's another thing. The sequels are 20 minutes longer, but they feel about the same because they're,
Yeah.
even though it has a lot of kinetic energy, sometimes some of those dialogue scenes and some of the love sequences, just the chemistry's not there. And it's more just, okay, let's laugh at some of the silly dialogue, but get to the action sequence. The bus sequence, oof, which we kind of get remade a couple times
That's
in
what I
the
wanted
other
to touch
films.
on. That was awesome.
That's a classic sequence. There's nothing like, I can't think of anything that was filmed the way that was filmed that's done so successfully. So I think it's a really cool scene, the way that's
And
all
he broke
done.
it down into shots. He broke it
Uh-huh.
down. He was very strategic in how he filmed that. I thought it was really interesting. That's what I was going to mention as far as my closing thoughts briefly. I was going to mention mainly the couple that action sequence, the sequence where they realize he's at the hotel and he's trying to escape and he throws his guitar and he jumps up to the steps and it's like this, he's trying to escape. I thought that was cool. And then I was also going to touch on the acting, like this movie. What I, like I already touched on earlier, the big key element when you're watching this movie is remember that, with the exception of Carlos, nobody else had any acting experience. So
No.
even if they were in English and you understood and you didn't even need a dub, it was going to be come off a little bit wooden just because of lack of experience. You
Yeah.
know,
And the
so I
dialogue's
think
bad too. It's not well written. The film's
yeah,
not,
yeah,
there's nothing good about it. And adding that whole free coconut bit just because they forgot to show them spending, you didn't need
yeah,
to do
yeah,
that. You didn't need, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sitting here thinking, free coconuts? Why in the hell would anybody just give you free coconuts for walking into a town?
He
And
was
that's his
covered in his ass.
reasoning.
He didn't want to reshoot the scene and spend
Who
money.
cares? You know, we just show the exchanging of the money,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. Just
No,
silly
no,
little
I know what
things
you're
that
saying.
that
No,
shows just being immature. I mean, he was what, 23, 24
yeah,
years
yeah,
old
he's
when he filmed and
23.
shot this.
Yeah,
So again, there's some things just that were silly choices. I would have not redone that dialogue
yeah,
for that free
yeah,
coconut. But again, there's just a lot of interesting, fun things. But the charm, this movie is charming as hell. It's so, like, it's for an action extravaganza. It has this kind of quirky, almost Coen Brothers esque charm to
yeah,
it, like Blood Simple. It's got this kind of Napoleon Dynamite esque type of humor to it, where
yeah,
you're not expecting this bit of humor, but it's funny, it's genuine, it's heart's in the right place, even though again
yeah.
it's kind of a mess. It's a fun movie, and I'm glad that I got this opportunity to watch it again.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited that you're here because, like, number one, we've been friends for a while, so it's
Yeah,
just a chat for the first time is awesome. That in itself is awesome. Number one, and number two, honestly, it's weird, but I haven't had an action film on my show yet, so this is cool. That it's my first action
wow,
film. Yeah, so and I
that's
think this
cool.
is a good one to start with if you're going to jump into the world of action. Um,
Yeah,
I'll just before we close up, I'm gonna just touch my thoughts on the film. I thought a lot. I'm gonna echo a lot of what you did. I'm gonna steal some of your ideas. No, no, but no.
I'll
Honestly,
go
I
for
had a lot of similar vibes. I love the action sequences. I love the fact that he was able to get some good shots in that were very creative and inventive. I do see a lot of the flaws, like you're talking about, in regards to some of the acting that I definitely feel could be improved. But I also recognize, like I said earlier, I think Carlos is fantastic. Even Domino, considering she has no acting experience, I think is fantastic. I thought their chemistry, although their little love story was kind of brief because they were focused on everything else, I thought it was great. I think from me, like I was said earlier, like I was someone at one point in my life where I wanted to be a writer. I still write. I wanted to enter the world of film directing and stuff like that, and comic books and stuff like that. Watching this, number one, loving an action films. Number two, just seeing that and just being blown away by the fact that, like, hey, this is inspiration. You don't have to follow the same exact path, like you said. There are other
it.
paths that are available nowadays for people that want to do this stuff. But just walking away after watching it and just being so inspired by what he did and how he did it. And I know in the world of film critique, you're not supposed to judge the how it was made stuff. You're supposed to just judge on the story that's in front of you. I personally think that's bullshit. I
Yeah.
think for me, the biggest element of this show, and I always tell my audience, the biggest element of this show for me is not 4 stars, 10 stars, or not there's anything wrong with that at all. It's if I can connect with a film in any way. And if I can
Mhm.
connect with a film in any way, I'm excited about talking about it. Even if it's a film I don't like, and I'll tell you how I disconnect with the film. You know what I mean? But I need to connect with the film in a certain way. If they're going to give me something, if I'm going to say something positive, it's coming from the heart. That's what I try to do. And for this film, I definitely connect because there are so many elements of it that inspired me. And even at the story level and all its flaws and all its bullshit, there's still so much positive in this film that just makes for a fun viewing experience. Even if you have no interest in filmmaking and you're just looking for a fun action flick to watch on a Sunday afternoon while you're drinking your green beer on St. Patty's Day, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I definitely recommend this to anyone that hasn't seen it. Hell, even if you have seen it, give it a rewatch because it's worth watching. Um, it's awesome. Um, with that said, I think now would be a good time to tell everybody. Next week, hopefully, we're going to do a part two to what we're calling our Guy with a Guitar series. And Mike
Mhm.
is going to be kind enough to join me. And next week, we're going to talk about a film that came out in 2014. It was the directorial debut of William H. Macy. You guys know him from Shameless and a million other things. He stepped up to the plate and decided to direct his first film. It stars, unfortunately, the late Anton Yelchin, who passed away sadly. We all know his story. If you haven't, it was a horrible accident. It's sad. Look it up. Probably already know about it, but he was fantastic. It also stars one of my all-time favorite actors, a guy that is a Tony Award winner. He just won his Emmy a year ago, an underrated gem in the world of acting. He's known now as a character actor, but he had done some leading man acting too. But now I think he's more known in his career as a character actor. Fumbling on my words again, guys. The great Billy Crudup. I'm a huge fan of Billy. I always promote his stuff. I don't remember exactly what episode, but a couple of months ago, I covered his biopic of the Steve Prefontaine movie Without Limits, which I absolutely adore. And part of the reason I adore that film is he really captured the essence of that character. Well, we're going to be talking, with all that said, we're going to be talking about the 2014 film Rudderless, which is also about a guy with a guitar. Now, this movie is completely different in a lot of different ways, thematically from El Mariachi, but we figure we go with the whole guy with a guitar theme. And I think some people are going to love it. Some people maybe not, but I think there's a lot of good elements to that film. And that's something Mike is going to be kind enough to join me next week, and we're going to talk about that. So, guys, if you're playing along with us here, be sure to check it out. It is available to rent. I think through some of the streaming services like Prime. Unfortunately, it
Yep.
doesn't come with Prime, so you have to spend like $4 to rent it. But you
Yeah,
can
it's like
find it.
$3. You can
Yeah,
rent it for $3 or buy it for like under 10.
yeah. I found it
Um,
on Amazon for $10. Yeah.
yeah, yep,
So
I've got it too. So I'm
it's
actually going to watch that this weekend. Probably not
oh
today,
okay.
but I'll
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
watch. Yeah, maybe not today. Probably Monday or Tuesday. But I'm going to watch that soon. I'm really excited. And again, I like this Sundance connection because again,
Yeah.
that's kind of my bread and butter. Both these films, Sundance. So I appreciate you bringing me on. This will be
No, get
really
out of
fun
here.
to be able to watch this. And William H Macy was also in a film from my first Sundance called The Cooler, which
What
has
is
a
it called?
Wayne Kramer. It's called The Cooler with by Wayne Kramer. Did you ever see that one?
Is that the guy
William
that
H
always they
Macy.
send him into the casinos because he always loses? And that
Yeah,
I
and Alec
remember seeing it
Baldwin's in
years
it.
ago. I have a vague memory. Yeah, that's
Yes,
awesome.
there's quite a at the time it was rated X because there was a
Oh,
an innocent shot of the hair around her vagina during a sex scene. So they were going to give it an X rated and then an NC-17. Then they had to cut this like little millisecond of a scene
all
out
right, somebody
to
get the
make it
sinners
R.
out. Problem solved.
So stupid, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was also my first Sundance. But yeah,
Wow.
there's a connection to everything. I'm always looking for connections in the
Yeah.
world of film, and I just love the connections that I've made through my friends like you,
Yeah.
getting to know you, and my friends over at Watch Get Plus, my friends at the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema, my friend Brian Higgins, who introduced me to all you guys. I got to give him a shout out, and his nonprofit, which is called Mental Health or Mentally Healthy Fit or Films, Ideas, and Tips. You can find him online there, Brian Higgins. Again, I can't say enough about Robert Rodriguez and what his films have done for us, just
Yeah.
genre lovers. He makes genre
Oh,
films
absolutely. He loves
that
genre
are
films.
fun, they're cartoony, they're
Yeah,
entertaining,
absolutely.
but they have a natural pizzazz, a zing to them. Not everything works, hypnotic, but the stuff that
Yeah.
does work is fun, it's frenetic, and it's rooted in that Sundance Boys early 1990s aesthetic that came again from Smith and Rodriguez and Tarantino and these other guys that came during that time period to really kind of create this whole new type of film that's I love, and I think our generation, those in their mid 40s, love a lot of Rodriguez and Tarantino's work. I think you've got the Rodriguez, El Mariachi is pre-Tarantino. You have the Tarantino work, which kind of goes up until they flopped with Grindhouse. After that flop, they kind of went their own separate ways, and since then, he's really dove into the kids stuff, and then he's done a handful like
That's good to
Alita,
hear,
and
man.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
he's kind of been less successful. I don't know since he stopped working with him, but I think Grindhouse being a flop as it was just sad because
Yeah.
I was there to see it opening weekend with my
Oh yeah,
buddies,
no, for sure. I was
both
there. I mean,
films.
Tarantino, and you're getting two movies for the price of one. And you know what I mean? You get a Tarantino and you get a Rodriguez. How could you say
Yep.
no to that thing? You
I was
know?
a Planet Terror fan at the time, but I think
Yeah,
Tarantino's flick has grown on me a little bit. That ending is just too great, even though it takes a
yeah.
lot to get to the ending. Some
It
of that
does. Yeah.
dialogue. Thank God that Rodriguez doesn't do the dialogue that Tarantino does. Because man, some Tarantino dialogue gets really too much.
Yeah, he gets a
But
little.
again,
He gets a little crazy. I mean, like, listen, the stuff in
yeah,
Dust Till Dawn. Some of this dialogue he wrote for Dust Till Dawn, like, I love that movie, but some of it's like, bro, you're just taking it like
cringe.
you're just. I haven't. I have to restrain myself because I have no filter sometimes, but you're just taking some of that stuff and you're just putting it all out there, you know. Um,
Yep, he
I
did. He put it all out there. But man, it was fun talking to you about this
yeah,
stuff. And these guys
absolutely,
are a big part of me loving film and being in my 20s. I mean, I was in my 20s
yeah,
when I
absolutely,
discovered Rodriguez and Tarantino and a lot of these boys. So
for
their
sure.
films do mean a lot to me, even though as I get older, I don't go back to them as much. So it
Yeah,
was fun to give me the opportunity to go back and watch the Mexico trilogy again. And
no,
really,
dude,
El
it's so fun.
Mariachi and Eldor and um, Desperado are the two I would recommend the most. I think El Mariachi is a must watch, especially to get that
Same here.
vibe. It's not 100% successful. And if you go
Yeah,
into it thinking that you're going to watch just straightforward action movie, that's not. Look for the
no,
quirks. Look for the fact that it was made on with friends in this little tiny border town in Mexico
yeah,
for pretty much for
absolutely.
free. I mean, it was basically he said besides the cost of film, it was maybe $500 he spent. Everybody volunteered their time just to be a part of a movie and just to be a part of something. Again, thank you for letting me be a part of something over
Oh, get
here
out
at
of here.
a little something different. So
No,
appreciate you
no
and I
problem.
appreciate your friendship and yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully I mean we'll talk next week about Rudderless, but I'm excited for the future. We can talk
me
more
too,
film.
brother. Me too. I'm gonna just real quickly just say thank you, my YouTube followers, for following me. You guys are great. I do want to apologize to you guys for my last episode. I'm gonna tell the story I told you, Mike. So last week, I was getting ready to do a graphic novel. It's a fantastic graphic novel by a guy named Art Spiegelman. It's called Mouse. So I read the first
Mhm.
chapter, and the whole time I'm getting like this headache, and as I'm reading this thing, I'm like, the camera's not right. I can't get the angle right on my tripod. I'm getting this headache from reading. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I found out that my reading glasses I had just bought, I got the wrong prescription, and it just screwed up the entire episode. So it's a little bit of a blunder. But I fixed that mistake. I had a 3.25 prescription reading glasses on when I was reading it. I now have 1.75, which is much better and the proper. So you can see the slight variation in the numbers there. But I'm going to be later on in the week. I'm going to be talking about chapter 2 of that graphic novel, Mouse, Maus. It's basically a story about a guy talking to his dad who survived Auschwitz and the Holocaust, and it's a really awesome graphic novel. It won a Pulitzer Prize, believe it or not, which is crazy because I don't think that's the first time and probably the only time any graphic novel has ever won a Pulitzer Prize,
It's true.
and it's a really cool piece. So I wanted to tell my fan base, you guys out there, about that. You touch base on all the people that I would normally thank. I think the only people that I wouldn't normally would include in that would be Brad and Troy over at Not a Bomb. Those guys are fantastic. I don't know if you mentioned this. I don't. I think you mentioned Gentlemen of
I
Watch
did
Skip
not.
Club. So Brad and Troy, these guys are awesome. You guys probably already listen to them, but if you don't, every week they take a film that was either a commercial failure or a critical failure, and they discuss whether the film was actually deserving of the term bomb. These guys are awesome. They've been a big champion for my channel. They were kind enough last month to have me on for the episode where they covered The Bonfire of the Vanities by Brian De Palma. Um, they're just awesome. Just really good guys, super supportive. So check out their channel, guys. Like I said, you have to look forward to part 2 of Mouse this week, and then hopefully sometime next week we're going to record Rudderless, so you'll have that to look forward to as well. So I just want to thank everybody for continuing to show the love and support. I'm going to end on that note. Mike, I'll probably talk to you briefly after the recording. And thank you again so much for being on, dude. I love it. You were awesome.
Appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you being on. So I will end with that note, and I'll talk to you in just a second, Mike. I'm going to find the end button right here, and there we go.
Cool.
All right. I think that's not. Oh, hold on.